On a hot August night in 2013, a helicopter rushed through the darkness over Pennsylvania. Inside was a woman fighting for her life. Her name, Melissa Rocuba. She had been shot in the head. Her family raced to the hospital, praying she would survive. But what they didn't know yet was that the person who shot her was someone they never suspected. This is the story of how home security cameras captured the final moments of Melissa's life, and how those recordings would eventually help bring justice nearly 9 years later. When the helicopter landed at the hospital, Melissa's daughter Chelsea was already waiting. She was only 22 years old. Chelsea had no idea how she even got to the hospital. She was in shock, panicked, and scared. Her sister Sabrina lived far away in Wisconsin. When she got the call, she rushed to the airport, crying and praying that her mother would be okay. Their Aunt Joanne and their grandfather, who was a police sergeant, drove for hours to reach the hospital as fast as they could. But Melissa wasn't the only one who was shot that night. Her husband, Bruno Rocuba, was at a different hospital. He had been shot too, but his injury was much less serious. The bullet had gone through his hand, leaving a hole right through his palm. Doctors operated on his hand, while his wife lay dying in another hospital. The big question police had was this: how did a bullet go through Bruno's hand and then hit Melissa in the head? Less than 15 hours after the shooting, police brought Bruno to his house to explain what happened. His hand was freshly bandaged. His wife was on life support. Detectives gave him a toy gun and asked him to show them exactly what happened that night. Bruno sat on the bed, the same bed that still had his wife's blood on it, and he tried to demonstrate how the gun went off by accident. Bruno told the police that he and Melissa had come home from dinner with friends. Everything was fine between them, he said. There was no argument. He explained that he had left his gun in the nightstand. For Melissa, because she was home alone, and there had been break-ins in the area. When they got home, Bruno said he wanted to put the gun away safely because their grandson was coming to visit. He claimed he was just checking if there was a bullet in the chamber when the gun accidentally went off. Police searched the entire house, looking for clues. They took videos and collected evidence. They found no signs of a fight or struggle. Hospital staff examined Melissa's body and found no other injuries. Bruno insisted that he and his wife had been getting along perfectly. There were no arguments, he said. Nothing was wrong. Their friends, who had dinner with them that night, agreed. They said Bruno and Melissa seemed happy. There was no fighting or tension between them. Melissa spent 3 terrible days in intensive care. Her brain had been severely damaged by the bullet. Her sister Sabrina begged the doctors to do something, anything, to save her. But the doctors gently explained there was no hope. On August 10th, 2013, at 1:45 in the morning, Melissa's family made the heartbreaking decision to take her off life support. She passed away, surrounded by her loved ones. She was gone, and her family was left with questions. Even though Melissa was dead from a gunshot wound, something shocking happened. Bruno was never arrested. Melissa's family couldn't believe it. Her grandfather was a police sergeant, and he said that if this had happened in his county, Bruno would have been immediately put in handcuffs. But Bruno didn't spend a single night in jail. The district attorney's office felt they didn't have enough evidence to charge him with murder. So they decided not to charge him with any crime at all. The case stayed open, but Bruno went free. To understand what happened, we need to go back to the beginning. Melissa and Bruno's daughters, Chelsea and Sabrina, always thought they had the perfect family. Their friends agreed. Everyone saw them as a happy, loving family that did everything together. Melissa and Bruno met in the summer of 1988. Melissa was just 19 years old and worked as a police officer. Bruno was 22 and served in the Navy. They fell in love, got married, and started a family. Chelsea and Sabrina have fond memories of their childhood. Their mother loved being a wife and a mom. She was amazing at it. Bruno was a great father too. He took his daughters hunting and fishing. They were so close that when Chelsea was young, she wanted to cut her hair short, just to look like her dad. From the outside, the Rocuba family looked perfect. But as the girls grew up and had children of their own, they started to see problems in their parents' marriage. The first major sign of trouble came when Sabrina and her husband moved in with her parents for a while. Her daughter was just 9 months old. That's when Sabrina saw that her parents argued constantly. One night, things got violent. Bruno and Melissa got very drunk and started fighting. Bruno grabbed Melissa by her hair and threw her against the wall, so hard she couldn't breathe. Sabrina decided right then that she had to move out. This wasn't a safe place for her family. Sabrina tried to talk to her mother about what she had witnessed, but Melissa always downplayed the problems. She never wanted to say anything bad about Bruno to her daughters. Then, just 2 weeks before the shooting, Melissa revealed a frightening secret to Chelsea. She took her daughter for a car ride and told her something shocking. Bruno had pulled a gun on her before. It happened when Melissa didn't want to be intimate with him. Bruno threatened her with a gun. Chelsea was confused. Why was her mother telling her this now? After Melissa's death, her family started to notice Bruno's strange behavior. First, Bruno barely spent any time at the hospital while his wife was dying. He would visit for maybe an hour and then leave. When Melissa actually died, Bruno wasn't even there. He was at home. Then, just hours after the shooting, while his wife was still alive in intensive care, Bruno asked Chelsea to bring him Melissa's cell phone. He wanted to delete some text messages before police could see them. Bruno's next request was even more disturbing. With Melissa still alive in the hospital and with police finished collecting evidence, Bruno asked his daughters to do something terrible. He asked them to clean the house and get rid of the mattress, the one covered in their mother's blood. He said he couldn't come home to that. He didn't want to see all the blood. Chelsea and Sabrina, who were only in their early 20s, agreed to help their father. They took the bloody mattress in a truck and burned it in the woods. Before Melissa was even buried, Bruno asked for more help. He wanted his daughters to get rid of everything that belonged to their mother. All of Melissa's clothes had to go. Her Aunt Joanne had to go to the thrift store to find clothes to bury Melissa in, because Bruno had donated all her clothing. Even Melissa's beloved dog, Zeus, a 10-year-old Rottweiler, had to go. Bruno got rid of him right after Melissa died. It was like Bruno wanted to erase every trace of his wife. Then, Melissa's family discovered something that made them even more suspicious. Bruno started talking about dating again, asking how long he should wait before making a relationship public. He was talking about Tonya Wilczewski, the wife of their friend Jack. Jack and Tonya had been with Bruno and Melissa at dinner on the night of the shooting. Jack started noticing strange things too. The day after Melissa was shot, he walked into the hospital room and saw Bruno and Tonya together, and he thought they were kissing. In the weeks after the shooting, Jack kept coming home from work to find Bruno's car in his driveway. He asked Bruno and Tonya why Bruno kept visiting during the day. They made Jack feel like he was crazy, like he was seeing things that weren't there. Then, just months after Melissa's death, Jack woke up at 2 a.m. and Tonya wasn't in bed. He drove to Bruno's house, and there she was, walking out with barely any clothes on. She packed her bags that same night and moved in with Bruno. This was especially painful for Chelsea because she lived right next door to her father. Now she had to watch Tonya cooking Christmas dinner in her mother's kitchen. Chelsea wasn't even invited. Tonya cut her hair like Melissa. She got her nails done like Melissa. She sat in Melissa's chair on the front porch. Chelsea tried to accept it because she didn't want her father to be alone. Then, about a year and a half later, everything changed. One day, Chelsea finally got the courage to ask her father what really happened the night her mother died. Bruno's answer shocked her. He said, "I didn't mean to kill her, I just tried to scare her." Bruno had just confessed that it wasn't an accident. He admitted that he and Melissa had been arguing that night. The gun was meant to frighten her. Then Bruno suddenly changed the subject, saying he had groceries in the car and walked out like he hadn't just admitted to murder. Chelsea spent months struggling with what to do. Finally, she told her father she was going to tell the police what he said. Bruno threatened her. He said if she went to the police, he would ruin her credibility and nobody would believe her. But Chelsea went anyway. She drove to the police station and filled out a report. She told them everything, including the incident her mother had shared about Bruno threatening her with a gun before. Chelsea hoped the case would be reopened, but nothing happened. Police told Chelsea it was her word against her father's. One investigator even suggested that Chelsea might be lying about her father because she wanted money. This hurt Chelsea deeply because at that point, she didn't even know she was entitled to any inheritance, but there was money involved. Melissa had left behind a will and over $300,000. The money was supposed to be split between her husband and daughters. Instead, Bruno sent papers to his daughters, telling them not to read them, just sign them and send them back. Both girls did, giving their father complete control of their mother's money. With no action from police, Chelsea felt she had to let it go. She even allowed her son Greg to spend time with his grandfather. She said she hated Bruno for taking her mother, but she loved how good he was to her son. The case went cold for years. Bruno continued living his life, now with Tonya. It seemed like he had gotten away with murder. But in 2020, everything changed when a determined investigator decided to take a fresh look at the case. Corporal Greg Allen was assigned to review cold cases for the Pennsylvania State Police. When he came across Melissa Rocuba's file, something immediately caught his attention: the 911 call. As he listened to the recording, he heard something disturbing. In just one phone call, Bruno gave 3 completely different versions of what happened. First, he said they were fighting. Then, he said they were playing around with the gun. Then, he said he was just playing with the gun. The stories didn't match. Let's listen to what Bruno said on that 911 call. The operator asked what the problem was. Bruno said, "A gunshot wound. My wife." When asked if it was self-inflicted, Bruno replied, "No, we were fighting." But seconds later, when the operator asked about the argument, Bruno changed his story. He said, "No, we were playing around with the gun when we were shooting it." Then he changed it again, saying, "I was playing with the gun and I let it go off." 3 different stories in one call. Corporal Dan Nylon was asked to examine all the evidence. He found many problems with Bruno's story. Bruno claimed he was trying to unload the gun when it accidentally went off. But if that were true, the first thing anyone would do is remove the magazine from the gun. Bruno never did that. Even more important, the gun had 2 safety features. Both safeties had to be turned off for the gun to fire. This wasn't the kind of gun that could just accidentally go off. There was also a problem with where Bruno said he and Melissa were sitting when the gun fired. In his police interview, Bruno demonstrated that he was sitting on one side of the bed, pointing the gun toward the opposite side, where Melissa was sitting. But the blood evidence told a different story. All the blood and ballistics evidence was on the wall, behind Bruno, not on the opposite side of the bed. Bruno was lying about where they were when the gun went off. Then, Corporal Nealon found something that no one had properly examined before: a home security video from the night of the shooting. The Rocubas had a security camera mounted on the front of their house. It recorded video and audio to a DVR. Nylon sat in his office with the door closed, headphones on, and even unplugged the office refrigerator To eliminate any background noise, he needed to hear every word on that recording. What he heard changed everything. The video showed Bruno and Melissa arriving home in their car. They were clearly arguing. Melissa asked Bruno, "What is wrong with you?" You could hear anger in her voice. Bruno told her, "Next time, you get your own ride." The argument continued as they went into the house. Even though they were no longer visible on camera, the window was open and the microphone picked up sounds from inside. They were still fighting. This completely destroyed Bruno's claim that there was no argument that night. The FBI crime lab enhanced the audio from the recording. What they heard was shocking. For almost 30 minutes, Bruno and Melissa argued. They cursed at each other. They yelled and screamed. Their dog could be heard barking. Melissa shouted, "I didn't do anything." She told Bruno he had to leave because of something he had done hundreds of times before. Then there were sounds of things being thrown, and seconds after that, the gun went off. This was not an accident. Using DNA testing and blood pattern analysis, forensic experts figured out what really happened. Bruno and Melissa were not sitting peacefully when the gun went off. Bruno was on top of Melissa, in the middle of the bed, facing the headboard. He was using his hand to hold her down while threatening her with the gun. Melissa tried to escape his grip. There was a struggle. Bruno's hand came loose, and at that moment, he pulled the trigger. The bullet went through his hand and into Melissa's head. On June 3rd, 2022, nearly 9 years after Melissa's death, Pennsylvania State Police pulled Bruno Rocuba over during a traffic stop. They were taking no chances. They knew Bruno had many guns and were prepared for anything. Police calmly approached his car, asked if he had any weapons, and then placed him under arrest. Bruno was charged with murder and theft. The theft charge was for the money he had taken from his daughters. Bruno immediately asked for his lawyer and said nothing else. Chelsea had complicated feelings about her father's arrest. She still loved him in some ways. She helped pay his legal bills. Her son was very close to his grandfather, and she didn't want to make things worse. Bruno pleaded not guilty and claimed it was still an accident. His lawyer faced a difficult challenge. He had to explain all the different versions of Bruno's story, all captured on tape. The hardest evidence to overcome was Melissa's voice on that home security recording. Bruno's lawyer was most worried about one piece of evidence: his client's wounded hand. The lawyer argued who would shoot themselves through the hand just to kill someone. But as the trial approached, both sides agreed to a plea deal. Bruno would plead guilty to third-degree murder, which meant he didn't intentionally kill Melissa, but his actions were reckless. Having a gun, drinking alcohol, leaving a bullet in the chamber, turning off the safeties, and having a passionate argument. All of this led to Melissa's death. On January 8th, 2025, Bruno's sentencing hearing took place. Melissa's sister Joanne attended and read her victim impact statement directly to Bruno. She looked him in the eyes first, making him face her. She told him it was like seeing a ghost because she looked so much like her sister. Joanne told Bruno he had never shown any remorse. She said he had killed his daughter's mother and tried to erase Melissa's existence, but he could never erase her memory. Chelsea was asked if she would have testified against her father if there had been a trial. She answered quickly, "Yes, I would have." She explained that her mother deserved justice. Her mother should still be here, but getting justice came at a price. Chelsea said everyone congratulated her on getting justice for her mom, but now she had lost her father too. Her son lost his grandfather. The justice felt bittersweet. Bruno Rocuba was sentenced to 12 to 40 years in prison. With time already served, he will be eligible for parole, starting in 2035. Joanne promised she will be at every parole hearing to protest his release. Sabrina had mixed feelings. She said, her father took someone's life, and it wasn't an accident. He doesn't deserve to get out. But at the same time, she still loves him and misses him. The family remains torn between justice and love. Despite all the pain, Melissa's family is determined to keep her memory alive. Sabrina has pictures of her mother all over her refrigerator. She tells her daughter how wonderful her grandmother was and how much Melissa loved being a grandmother. Chelsea talks about how much her mother cared about her son Greg. Melissa loved that little boy more than anything. Chelsea believes her mother wouldn't want Greg to hurt the way this case has hurt him. But there was one more heartbreaking chapter to this story. Just weeks after this case was covered by the media, on March 10th, 2025, Chelsea's son Greg was riding his all-terrain vehicle when he collided with an SUV. Greg died from his injuries. He was only 13 years old. Another tragic loss for a family that had already suffered so much. It felt impossible to believe. This was their story. This kind of thing happens in books or on TV, not to real families. The Melissa Rocuba case shows how home security technology can capture crucial evidence, even when no one realizes it's recording. It also shows how long justice can take and how complicated it becomes when family members are involved. Melissa's voice on that recording helped prove what really happened on that terrible August night in 2013. Her final words became the key to solving her own murder. While Bruno is now behind bars, Melissa's family continues to grieve, not just for her, but for all they have lost. This story reminds us that the truth has a way of coming out, even if it takes years. It also shows the complicated emotions families face when someone they love commits a terrible crime. There's no easy answer, no simple ending. Melissa is gone. Bruno is in prison, and a 13-year-old boy lost his life in a tragic accident. All we can do is remember Melissa Rocuba, honor her memory, and hope that her story helps others recognize the warning signs of domestic violence before it's too late. Rest in peace. Melissa, your voice was finally heard. Thank you for watching this difficult but important story. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out for help. You are not alone. If this video helped you understand this case better, please like, subscribe, and share it with others. Leave your respectful thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next video.